Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Three Rivers District of Holston Annual Conference pre-retirement webinar. My name is Frank O'Brien. I am a senior benefit educator with Wespath Benefits and Investments. I acknowledge the current circumstances in which we are all meeting, but still it is my pleasure to be able to share this information with you. This session will be recorded, so if those have to drop off or those who are not able to make it, a recording will be sent to Reverend Lambert down the road. Reverend, you want to say good morning?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I know this has been a difficult last week. I've been praying for everyone and trying to contact as many of you as I can. And we'll be collecting flood buckets and health kits and water at Gray United Methodist Church. And we're in contact with them this morning, figuring out when's the best time to take things to them. But thank you for tuning in, and hopefully this Wespath presentation will be a blessing to you. That was the whole hope for this. But let's be in prayers for our brothers and sisters in Christ who are really going through a difficult time right now. But we'll just pray for our sister churches, that you would embrace them with your presence and power, that you'd meet their needs. There's many suffering people, many lost everything. Some lost businesses, some lost homes, some homes are damaged. It's just devastating. And we pray you wrap your loving arms around them and give us wisdom and guidance on how to minister to them, how to help meet their needs. And we just pray that you supply that. Comfort your people, oh God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
So before we get started, as I indicated, this is being recorded, so you will all receive a recorded version of this for your reference later on. I did pull a registration list of 11 or 12 individuals and was able to provide them with the .pdf documents, the various documents that we give to our participants to help them inform them around the various programs and options that we have, retirement process, all of that. Those who have registered since, I will be providing you via email that information as well. It is a good number of PDFs, but hopefully you can save them all at the one time. General Conference of 2024 resulted in several changes. We have the Ministerial Pension Plan 65%, which we will talk about, and a second option there. Doesn't have to be an annuity. You can use what we call our Life Stage Retirement Income Program to derive income from that. We know that Compass passed. Compass is going to be effective January 1st, 2026. That is a new retirement plan. We're going to talk about that as this morning moves forward. Because of those changes, our retirement benefit projection is under development. We are making the programming changes to that document. We actually are in testing phase right now. I am a part of the testing group, so I'm not going to say a week or two because these things, you don't want to set too much of an expectation, but we are in the testing phase, so that is positive. What will happen is sometime down the road, you will receive an email from me with your clergy service record and your retirement benefits projection. So that'll be an individual email that will come from me, Frank O'Brien. In the subject line, it's going to be a funny word, ZIX, capital Z-I-X, and that just tells the system to encrypt the information because it's your information. So you'll receive that down the road. There is a question box. The chat box actually does not really work for the presentation. It's really more for the background kind of thing for people who are kind of doing technology if it was more elaborate. So the question box, I will try to remind myself to go into that question box throughout this morning to see what questions you have and to address them to the best that I can. If I can't give the full answer, I'll certainly let you know that and get back to you with that information. There'll be follow-up emails as a result of this. Again, the recording, you're going to hear about a benefit education consultation. That link will be provided. So that information will come out to you as well. For our agenda today, this was working a minute ago. There we go. So give another click. For our agenda today, we're going to talk about retirement and the retirement process. Now, this is a pre-retirement webinar. The age range can go anywhere along the spectrum. However, when we position this particular presentation, we do assume 2025 retirement, and that's for the purposes of our modeling and our illustrations. And when we recognize that not all here are going to be in next year's retirement class. So just to let you know, we kind of positioned a little bit that way. We will go through the retirement process, let you think about some of the things that will be coming your way when you are ready to start to make that determination. We will go through our retirement plans. And as I indicated, I'll hit on some of the general conference changes that we have. We'll talk about life stage retirement income. That's the program where you are asking us to derive the amount of monthly installment payments for you from your account balances. We'll go through that. We'll talk about the housing allowance exclusion, the comprehensive protection plan. Another change or two came out of general conference as it relates to that. We'll review that. We always have our resources, and that benefits access demo was just a dangling bullet. I should have gotten rid of that. We won't do a demo for that, but down the road, we will be doing demos as we get into the retirement season for 2025. Or if anybody wants to have a one-on-one benefit education consultation, we can walk through some stuff with that as well. When people start to consider retirement, there are several questions that may go through your mind. Some of them, all of them, maybe none of them, but I highly doubt that. The one question being, is now the right time? Or should you continue to stay in ministry? Should you wait for whatever those reasons may be? Are you ready? Certainly that is kind of paramount in the thinking about going into retirement status, but also, is your spouse ready? It is a change to the household. Will you have enough income? This is part of the process to help you think through understanding where your income is and where it will come from. We have our Wespath resources. You're going to hear about EY Financial Planning Services throughout. Certainly to use your own investment advisor, all of that can help you determine the income that you would be looking at in retirement. Where will I live is a key question for individuals. Some stay local, some follow family, some just love the cabin by the woods or by the lake or what have you. So where will you live? And then what will you do with your time? And here again is a full range of activity. We have many consultations with retiring clergy who are staying in the pulpit, pulpit supply for a period of time. We have some who are just going to stay within charitable types of events. And then we also have some of your colleagues who have decided to move on into full retirement mode. So maybe they're playing golf or fishing or photography, things like that as things start to roll out. When you think about retirement as it relates to the UMC and the Book of Discipline and how and when you can retire, we begin with the normal retirement provision. Normal retirement is age 65 or 40 years of service, or being the critical word there. If you are 62 and you have 40 years of service, you're eligible to retire under the normal retirement age. If you're 67 with only 20 years of service and you're ready to retire, you retire under the normal retirement provision. And there is early retirement. Early retirement is age 62 or 30 years of service. And you're going to hear about some considerations as it relates to early retirement when we talk about the clergy retirement security program's defined benefit. With early retirement, or is still the key word. If you're age 60 with 30 years of service, you can retire under the early retirement provision. And again, once you attain 30 years, you can retire under that. But we'll talk about some things to think about with early retirement. There is the mandatory retirement age of age 72. And then there is a 20-year retirement rule. So someone who is in ministry with full-time appointed for 20 or more years and decides they want to go into retirement, they can do so. It's under that provision of the Book of Discipline. But just note, as it relates to employer-provided accounts and benefits, the benefits provided, the accounts that are there, that you have to wait until you attain age 62 before you begin to be eligible to receive those benefits. Your personal contribution accounts in UMPIP are your accounts. There's tax considerations. You want to talk to a professional, but there is still that delay, if you will, in getting your employer benefits to age 62. As far as the retirement process is concerned, part of the document kit that's provided, I got to some later on, is this retirement checklist. And it's more elaborate than this, but there are things that you need to think about. First is registering for benefits access. Hopefully all of you have registered for benefits access and you're on benefits access. In a retirement plan, you don't want to be looking at it every day like it's, like an investment account or anything like that. It's still a retirement plan. But over time, you want to start to get in there, learn the platform, navigate around, look at your account balances, look at some transaction history, your contributions coming in as you expect. Or look at the investment funds and how your investment funds are allocated. Are you self-managing? Are you using Life Stage Investment Management? Another program that we will talk about this morning. If you have not registered, it's very easy to do. Go to wespath.org, click on Benefit Access. You're going to see a screen. It's going to say register now. You go through 4 easy screens to just get yourself set up, and then you can start looking at your account. And we authenticate each time we access benefit access. So it's a layer of security that is there for you. So in the initial registration, you're going to get hit with some authentication, but every time we go on, we're going to get that 6-digit number by text and put that into the screen to get access to the account. So it's good security there. You want to make sure that all of your personal information is correct. You want to make sure all of your spouse's information is correct. You want to make sure the names are spelled correctly. Dates of birth are in there correctly. Social Security, all of that. Then also you can check information around your beneficiaries. Make sure that is all set up. And again, how you're taking advantage of the plans and benefits that are available. You want to make sure all that is in good working order. You want to check your clergy service record. Again, that's forthcoming to you as a result of plan changes from General Conference and the associated system upgrades. But with the clergy service record, you want to ensure that all of your service time has been captured correctly. Certain benefits are going to be driven off of your service time, but it's your ministry, it's your career. You want to make sure it is correct and in good working order. If there's anything on there that does not look quite right to you, you want to reach out to your annual conference and speak to them. If you come to Wespath, we'll probably send you back to them just to ensure if there's any tweaks that need to be made to service time that can be made. And then the annual conference will update our benefit access record keeping system. With the clergy service record, you're going to hear about how your years of service come into the calculation for the clergy retirement security program's defined benefit. Also, for the comprehensive protection plan, there's some service criteria that applies to that. And there may be other service criteria that applies relative to annual conference derived benefits outside of Wespath. So again, you want to make sure that is all in good working order. And as I indicated, you want to make sure that your beneficiary designations are correct. You can do that on benefit access. You could call our participant services area if need be. But you do want to make sure they are in good working order. God forbid something happens to you, you and your spouse, and they're not in good working order for whatever reason. What will happen is it'll go to your estate, and then the probate court of the state that you live in gets involved, takes years, costs money, and it may not come out the way you had intended it for it to come out. So it's always good periodically to check your beneficiaries, but for those who are starting to lay the foundation for an upcoming retirement, maybe next year or next few years, this is good data to go in and make sure it is in good working order. Again, using 2025 as our model, 2025 Road to Retirement goes through benefits access. So another reason to be comfortable with the platform, be on the platform, because once we receive the intends to retire date from the annual conference, then screens get presented to you. And actually in the image here, you can see a long box up on top, rectangular box with a man smiling with a link. That's how you would be accessing the screens and the panels to make your individual benefit elections. And again, down the road in another venue, we can do a demo to kind of show you what that looks like. And we'll be sure to do that. You can verify your information. We just went through life stage retirement income. You can model that. We have a modeling tool on there. For those who are eligible to retire that we have on the system, that modeling tool is also available. You may not be retiring, but you're otherwise eligible. So we do provide that model for you. And then you make your elections again for those in 2025. Elections need to be made by 3 o'clock on Monday, June 30th. 2025 for next year. But really the theme here is the last business day of June, primarily June 30th, by 3 o'clock Central Time, which is 4 o'clock Eastern Time when the markets close, your benefit elections need to be made if you are going to want to be going to pay status with these benefits in that subsequent July. You don't have to make your elections for those things for which you want to defer. You can do that. We also recommend don't wait until June 20th, June 25th, June 30th to start making these elections. Get involved in some of the programs that we provide, of the webinars and seminars that we have. Use EY Financial Planning Services, your own tax or financial advisor. Go ahead and make your elections. Just go ahead and note that if you make an election May 31st and then things happen in the market that would alter the decision you made, there is a pending file. And in that pending file is just that transaction with a cancel link. You just go ahead and click cancel, confirm you're canceling it. So you don't sound like you put it in once, it has to stay there. But once it gets to June 30, anything that is in that file will get swept up and used to start to provide you with your benefits. This is our retirement team. They are a dedicated group of people in our customer services area that provide basically services to not just the current retiree class, but all of the retirees within Wespath, within UMC and such. Things you want to be continuing to think about is understanding your sources of income. So we have our retirement benefit plans. We have the Clergy Retirement Security Program, the Ministerial Pension Plan, and the Pre-82 plan. We are going to be talking about the forthcoming Compass plan this morning. Then we have your UNPIP. Hopefully you are all contributing into the PIP, at least at that 1%. They get that additional 1% match in the Clergy Retirement Security Program's defined contribution account. But hopefully you are engaging with the UNPIP to the extent that you can. You will have cash flow considerations, but taking advantage of that account to help supplement your retirement income. And then what about your spouse's sources of income? When you're doing the EY financial planning model or your own financial advisor or tax advisor, you are bringing everything in as a household. If you're married and you have a spouse, you're bringing everything in as a household. So you really want to see how all of that will work together to help you step back and think about the best decisions to make relative to the income you're going to derive. And then Social Security. Very important for individuals who are receiving Social Security, and primarily everybody is these days, but you are receiving Social Security. It's good to set yourself up on SSA.gov to look at your individual account. This also has a sign-in or registration protocol that you have to go through. It's a little bit more in-depth than the Wespath because this is your Social Security account. So there's going to be some of those questions like in 1985, which of these 4 houses did you live in? In 1996, which of these 4 cars did you own? There's always a none of the above option. But just to let you know, give yourself 5-6 minutes to really go through that. Now you can look at your Social Security statement. You can get that right online from that. They stopped mailing it on a regular basis several years ago. The year in which you attain age 60, and I believe the year you attain age 62, you do receive something in the mail from Social Security and maybe somewhat thereafter. But still, the information is there and accessible to you through SSA.gov, through SSA.gov. And you can see what your early retirement benefit would look like, your full retirement benefit. If you do the delayed retirement benefit to age 70, which we'll talk about in a little bit of detail later on, you can defer from your full retirement age under Social Security to age 70, and you receive additional credits, additional account balance towards your Social Security benefit. So we'll talk about that. And then also disability information and survivor information, those types of things. So, kind of pulling it all together here. The Wespath stuff we're focusing in on. Next, we'll get into the retirement plans. But there's spouse's information. There's your Social Security, your spouse's Social Security, how all of that will come and play together. And when you have these conversations, to jump ahead a little, always remember about that housing allowance tax exclusion. In your planning, you have tax efficiency planning as well due to that housing allowance tax exclusion. So we'll talk about the Wespath retirement plans. I'm going to quickly jump over to the question box just to see. Nope. Okay, that's good. we'll talk about the retirement plans. And again, this is the road to retirement journey, all of those metaphors that come into play. So our visual on that, I have to continue to hit the screen when I do this. Our visual on that is a bunch of cars driving around a road like it's Google Maps. Here we're going to go through each of the retirement plans that we have. We're going to start with the Clergy Retirement Security Program. That is the current employer-provided retirement plan. So we're going to first focus in on the CRSP. We will then go to the Ministerial Pension Plan, the Pre-82, UMPIP, touch on comps. With the defined benefit plan, there are actually two retirement arrangements baked into the CRSP. There is a defined benefit, a traditional pension. It's a formula benefit with three variables I'm going to review with you, and it's math. This is not subject to market activity. Then we have the defined contribution side, that supplemental employer account that's provided to you. And again, you get 2% automatic, required non-matching. And if you're doing that 1% in UMPIP, and I hope you all are, you're getting that additional 1%. So that's the accumulation of that 3% ongoing employer contribution in the CRSP as well. We'll talk about the monthly benefit derived from the defined benefit side. First, as I indicated, it is not a balance. It is a formula. It's a formula benefit, traditional pension. We multiply three components together to drive the amount that then becomes annuitized as your monthly income. First, we look at the denominational average compensation. And the way that works today is we're looking at, the words are kind of telling us, we're looking at everybody's compensation, full-time appointed clergy, what the number of people we're looking at, and come up with an amount. I'll talk about a change to that momentarily, but that's what that is. Then there's a retirement factor. For those of you who have been looking through your accounts and all, you can see that within the Clergy Retirement Security Program, there's two time frames, 2007 through 2013, and then 2014 onward, or post-2013 onward. When the plan first rolled out in 2007, a thing called the retirement factor was 1.25%. General Conference of 2012 reduced it to 1%. So as we go through the calculation modeling, you're going to see we're doing two calculations to derive the single annuity amount. And then your credited service during those periods of time. So 2007 to 2013, post 2014 onward, that credited service comes into play in the calculation as well. Again, looking back at your clergy service record. So with the denominational average compensation, again, it's all full-time appointed clergy. What was the number of people that we looked at to derive the amount? That's the denominator. For the class of this year, it was $78,292. For the retiree class of 2025, it is at $80,297. A change was made at General Conference. After the 2025 calculated amount of $82.97, from that point forward, the DAC will go up 2% per year, ad infinitum. It's going to continue on 2% each year. This way, with all the various changes that are happening within the denomination, just within mainline churches in general, that we don't find ourselves in a point where we're tipping over that DAC and going down. We wanted to make sure that that DAC stayed up. We no longer have to do the calculation behind the scenes and accumulating all this data. We just know it's 2%, 2%, 2% going forward. And that 2% will apply to you in the year that you retire, whatever that DAC is. And then we have the retirement factors. So as I indicated, from 07 through 13, it was 1.25%. And then from January 1, 14 through, in our model, June 30th, 2025, it is that 1%. And then the service time. So for those full-time appointed, 7 years of full-time service, 07 through 13. And then through 2025, it would be 11.5 years, again, if full-time. And it's, assumptions we're making for today. So we have those three components. And now we are doing the math. We have two blocks here, 2007 through 13, post 14. We start with the same denominational average compensation. So you have the 8297. You have the retirement factor in play at that time, 1.25%, 7 years full time. We come up with an amount, just doing the math, we multiply by 12, and we get to 585. Now we look at the second time frame. Here, the DAC is the same. The retirement factor is 1%, and then the years of service in our model, 11.5 years. We're doing the math again, getting an amount, dividing by 12. We come up with that 769, and that derives an amount of $1,354. And that's the initial calculation that gets done. But what choices do you have that may impact the resulting annuity after that initial calculation? And there are some choices and decisions that you will make. First, if you're married, there is a surviving spouse benefit. We're going to go through the forms of annuities and go deeper into the COLA percent when we go through the ministerial pension plan. So just know that we're going to get back to what those options are, but you'll have surviving spouse benefit options. And if you're single, there are 3 single life annuity options. For the CRSP, there is the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. It also applies to NPP annuity, but here it has to be at least 2%, but you're going to hear that it can be 2, 3, 4, or 5%. The higher the COLA percent, the lower the initial amount to you, but you'll see there's a compounding effect that gets you more benefit later on in retirement. And then again, if you decide to do early retirement, there are some considerations around early retirement. Again, we have the surviving spouse annuities. I've requested the single life come on this panel as well, but you can see there are some options there that we will review with you. So there's a life in 100%, 85%, 70%. Other things that come into play when you think about what COLA percent do you want? It can be your age and your spouse's age in terms of there could be some variation there that would kind of drive some decision making in terms of what income you want to receive now, what income you're looking to receive later. Again, if you have longevity in your family, you're going to want the benefits to go and last and continue to increase over a long period of time. Other sources of income, your Social Security, your spouse's income, anything else you may have as a household, all comes into play together, and then you can start to make these individual, mutually exclusive decisions around benefits. And then the last thing, again, was with early retirement. I'm just going to take a second here to slow down. With early retirement, the consideration is that if you are going into early retirement, in our model here, Reverend Wesley, he's 63 years old. His normal retirement age is going to be at age 65. He's retiring 2 full years early, just the way the birthday landed, 2 full years early. So he's going into the early retirement. With early retirement, for each month of early retirement, there is a 0.05%, a 0.5% reduction in the amount of annuity that you receive. So that translates to 6% a year, and in our instance here, 12%. So we start with that 1354, but because it's early retirement and we've executed the annuity, then it's going to be that 12% reduction, which brings it down to $1,192. It's not a penalty or anything like that. It's just similar to Social Security. You're getting paid out for a longer period of time, so the amount gets reduced to make sure that that full benefit is provided to you throughout that full period of time. Now, a couple of things to note here. If you don't necessarily need to receive your benefit from the CRSP defined benefit, you can wait until you attain age 65 to receive your benefit. But it's going to be this benefit. It's going to be the benefit calculated at the time you go into a retirement appointment at age 63. You're just going to start off at that $1,354. So there'll be no reduction, but you're still at that base calculated amount in the year you retire. The DAC remains the same. We've frozen your years and months of service. So that happens there. Second thing is you don't have to wait the full 2 years. If you go in and say, you know what, I'm going to defer on that for a while and try to get the most out of it later on, but life happens and you need to start to tap into that, you can go in at any time before that age 65 and then we'll just do the reduction down to whenever you did that. So a little bit, so what you're going to hear about a lot today is options and flexibility in terms of how, when, and how much retirement income you want to derive. So again, things to be thinking about. With the early retirement provision, you can do it now, you can wait on it and get it. For all of you who are retiring under the normal retirement provision, be it age 65 or 40 years and going into retirement, there is no need to defer your CRSP-DB. Like, I'm not allowed to give advice, but I'm allowed to say you're just leaving money on the table at that point in time. So if you know you've satisfied that criteria, work through how you want your clergy retirement security programs to find benefit annuities that come your way going into retirement. You can think through the other benefits and plans and options you have, or you can defer on those. But here, it's just going to lock in and be what it's going to be. So you might as well go ahead and take it. That's the clergy retirement security program's defined benefit. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the defined contribution piece. The defined contribution pre-retirement is an account balance. As I indicated earlier, there is that 2% automatic required non-matching employer contribution that goes in. It's based on your pay, that goes into the CRSP DC account. And then if you're contributing to the PIP, 1% or more, and again, I'll always say it, hopefully it's more, but you're doing at least that 1%, you're getting that additional 1% matching contribution. That's the 3% that's going into the Wespath family of funds as your retirement account. With your retirement account, you can self-manage your investment allocation. You can make the determination of how you want to allocate your accounts, ongoing contributions, current account balances within our funds, or use Life Stage Investment Management, a program I'll review, where you're asking us to derive the investment allocation for you and then manage it over the long haul. We don't set it and forget it. I'll go into the dynamics of how the allocation works over the long haul and then actually over the short term as well. In retirement, it becomes available as cash distributions. And again, we have the Life Stage Investment Management, Life Stage Retirement Income Program, where you're asking us to derive the amount of monthly installments for you. Or, as with the investing, you can self-manage how you receive this account. You can tell us you need $1,200 a month, and then a year or two later you need a little more or a little less. You can just tell us that, and we'll do that, or you could use that program. It will roll over to the UMPIP, a little different with NPP, but this plan, the plan design, we will legally able to set it up so that once you go into your pay status, once we trigger the annuity in the CRSP-DB side, we'll automatically roll over the CRSP DC to the UMPIP. And you want to be in UMPIP because that's where all these programs and all this flexibility and all of this options, that's where it lives. So you want to be in that plan. There is required minimum distributions. If you were born before 1951, it's age 72, 51 to 59, I believe, or through 58. It's 73, and then if you were born 1959, your required minimum distribution is age 75. And for some people in some households, this could be a part of the overall planning as to when you're going to start to receive income or not. You could defer an account, and that's really kind of intended for your heirs. But once you get to that RMD age, we'll work with you and make sure you are getting that required minimum distribution. Any remaining balances will be paid to your beneficiaries upon participant's death or participant spouse's death, depending upon the circumstances. But again, you want to make sure that they are correct. So as that comes into play, you know the account can be paid out according to your wishes. So that is the CRSP plan. This is the plan that's going to be frozen as of 12/31/2025. You do not lose any of the benefits that you have. We'll hit on that again. For those who are already retired, nothing changes for those individuals. You're going to keep it as a protected benefit. You'll continue to get that annuity. Then you have the DC account, and you have options around how you want to receive your DC account in retirement. The next plan we'll talk about is the ministerial pension plan. The ministerial pension plan was the employer-provided retirement account, a retirement plan, from 1982 through 2006 when we started to go into CRSP. This is an account balance plan. A percentage of our compensation, 11 or 12%, was provided into an account invested in the Wespath funds to provide you retirement benefits in retirement. We'll talk about the structure of those retirement benefits. You are in in our Wespath funds. However, everybody in Ministerial Pension Plan is in the Life Stage Investment Management Program. So when you look at your benefit access record, you might see on the investment fund page, MPP has an allocation. That is in Life Stage Investment Management. Your account balances may be in Life Stage Investment Management with a different allocation mix, or if you're self-managing, you'll see that. But everybody is in that LSIM program, Life Stage program, for our management, because it's employer monies that's designed to provide retirement income in retirement. So there's more of a conservative tilt to the investment allocation to satisfy that goal or requirement of the plan. Upon commencement, we now have two options effective with the close of the general conference. We continue to have, and I guess it would be the default or normal form of benefit, the 65% providing lifetime monthly income in the form of an annuity. Thing about the annuity, and I should have said this earlier maybe, the thing about the annuity is you and your spouse cannot outlive those annuities. But once both of you are gone, then there's no further benefit to anyone else. The 35%, hold on a second here, just want to make sure. Okay, so the other 65% option, these are kind of new slides, 65% could go to life stage retirement income. Again, we're going to talk about that. If you use life stage retirement income to derive that amount of monthly income for you, you and your spouse both pass away, and there's anything remaining in that will go to your named designated beneficiary. So that's kind of the top tier differentiation between taking the annuity while leaving it as an account balance, but still required to get income from that through your retirement, is if there's anything remaining here that will go to your beneficiaries. Here with the annuity, that would cease to be a benefit to anyone. The 35% still is an account balance that we would recommend you roll. Well, yeah, we highly recommend you roll into UMPIP, but that becomes an account balance that you can merge together with all your other account balances and determine how, when, and how much income you want to derive. There are 6 annuity options I'll review with you. There are 5 annual COLA, annual cost of living adjustment options that are available to you that we're going to get into more detail momentarily. So again, that 65%, you can provide a lifetime annuity. An annuity is simply a series of payments that last through the participant's life or the participant's and spouse's life. And our annuities are timed on a monthly basis. That's fixed as a monthly regular stream of income. The second is to use that 65% in life stage retirement income. It's a program, an algorithm, very sophisticated. It's not an annuity and guaranteed like I just indicated, but it's using or applying the principles of an annuity, actuarial mathematics and mortality tables and all of that long-term complicated stuff to come up with an amount of income that can be provided to you on a monthly basis with the intention and the practice of giving increases over time. You remain invested in the markets. We are using life stage investment management. I'm going to get into this again later. We are using life stage investment management. So we're with the markets. We have a down year in the market. You may not see an increase. You may not see a decrease, but you may not see an increase. But we allow the market activity to also underpin and drive that income. Now, obviously, it's professionally managed. And if you transfer into life stage retirement income, this amount here, you cannot revoke that. You cannot transfer it back out. The other account balances, you'll hear you can go in and out of life stage retirement income, but that 65%, you're either getting an annuity or you're getting life stage retirement income monthly installments. The 35% remains an account balance, again, for you to determine how you want to receive it. And as I indicated, that 35%, you want to roll that into UMPIP. On benefit access, on those benefit election screens that I referred to earlier, there is a section that says, click on this and we're automatically going to roll that 35% over. The plan rule, to get a little esoteric, the plan rule is That 35%, if it's still considered NPP, you can either take all of it or leave all of it. It's not like you can take some of it. But once you put it into UMPIP, then you have that option to just take as you need when you need. Okay, so we have the 65% now with the two options. That 35% remains an account balance. Life Saves Time and Income is available for those account balances, and there are other options available to you. So when we look at the annuity, and we do have an example here, I don't remember all the variables, but I think somebody who's 65 years old, married, spouse about the same age, $400,000 is an account balance on the MPP side. This is a way of modeling the annuity. So these numbers are actually actuarially valid in terms of how we're viewing them in our model. There are 3 life and survivorship annuities available to you. You can see life in 100, life in 85%, life and 70%. Just to let you know, life in 70% is what we consider to be the normal form of benefit. So as you model a lot of things on benefit access, we're automatically going to default to that. So you would have to make the adjustments yourself to go to the other ones. But I mean, it's self-explanatory. You can see here that with the life in 70%, it is the higher amount that is payable to you. And then 70% of that is what goes to the surviving spouse. So there is that reduction. Life at 85%, same dynamic. So it's really the higher the survivorship percent, the lower the initial amount to you, but the greater amount that goes to the surviving spouse. And this is really where retirement income planning, financial planning comes into play. Some individuals, want to get now what they can now, understanding their situation is such that the 70% is amenable going into the future, that person passes away. Some people like to do the life in 100. I've had a lot of consultations where people do life in 100 because of the continuity that is there with the life in 100. Interestingly enough, I don't see a lot of life at 85. It tends to be more of, will we go with the higher amount and then that lower amount at 70, or do, the 100, but you have that 85% available to you as well. And then there are 3 single life annuity options. And here you can see that we have life only. Single life only option goes to one individual. Once that individual passes away, no further benefit to anyone else. But we have what we call a 5-year period certain window and a 10-year period certain window. You can see, depending upon which one you may elect, the dollar amounts come down. But again, these are run through actuarially, so they're not coming down a lot, but still there is a reduction. What happens is you're a single individual, you're taking a single life annuity, but there's someone in your life that's important to you that you're providing support to, or if you were to pass early, you would like to provide some support to, maybe a niece in college or something, right? With that 5-year window, you go into retirement, and if you pass, let's say year 3, that individual, that named designated beneficiary, would receive that additional 2 years of benefit. Then after that, no further benefit to anyone. 10-year, same principle. You're going along, year 7, you pass away. For the remaining 3 years, that named designated beneficiary gets that benefit. And then after 10 years, no further benefit to anyone. If you elect the 5-year or the 10-year and you yourself outlive those period certain windows and you pass, no further benefit to anyone. So again, this is one of those situations where you're kind of looking at yourself. And if you are married and your financial planning situation is such that you want to take a single life annuity, you can do so as long as your spouse signs a waiver and consent form consenting to the fact that they're waiving their survivorship benefits under either the CRSP or the MPP plan. So a little more flexibility and options there. We do have some individuals where it may be just a big gap in age difference, or maybe there are some health considerations going on that actually might derive that as well. But the key here is you have 3 life and survivorship annuity options. You have 3 single life annuity options. You can model these. You call our retirement team, continue to model these. EY Financial Planning Services understands how these annuities work, so you can work with them as well. And then there is the annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA that is available to you. For the ministerial pension plan, the one we just reviewed, it can be 0. But for the CRSP, it has to be at least 2. And in all instances, it can go 3, 4, or 5%. Now, does the COLA impact, your COLA election, does that impact the initial benefit amount that you will receive? And the answer to that is yes. And here's how. So again, just using a baseline model, the dollar amounts on the left-hand side are just there for modeling purposes, the ages on the bottom for modeling purposes. And as I've said a couple of times, we look at the life and 70% annuity as the normal form of benefit. We look at 2% to be a part of that normal form of benefit. So we use that as the baseline. So let's say you go into retirement, you have the life and 70%, 2% COLA, you start out at $1,700 a month in our model, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's going up 2%, 2%, 2%. But let's say you're interested in maybe going with a higher COLA percent. So we're going to go all the way out to the 5% COLA option. You can see that the initial amount comes down. The higher the COLA percent, the lower the initial amount to you. But 12, 13 years out, you cross over that 2% COLA, that's like the line of relativity there. You cross over that and you are getting more and more benefit down the line. So the compounding effect of the higher COLA percent reduces the amount now, but it gives you more benefit down the road. Again, this is where you have maybe some health considerations that you have in mind, that you're going to be living long, that there's a good chance of it, you might want to take that option. Now with the ministerial pension plan, I think this was a 25 years ago, an attempt at looking at a Social Security bridge. You can do 0%. It is the highest amount that you get coming into retirement because there's no COLA percent, but it's fixed. It's a straight line. It does not go up at all. So your purchasing power over time comes down. Not to influence you in any way, but with the new LSRI program and the Social Security bridge we have there, we think it's more functional than doing it this way. And then we just give you the examples. What would a 3%, what would a 4% look like? So again, higher the COLA percent, lower the initial amount, but at some point in time, and we can't say for sure, but 11, 12, 13 years out, you're now getting more relative to that 2% COLA for your monthly benefit. Coming back around to the ministerial pension plan, you can leave it on account until age 73 or 75. It is an account balance. It's invested. History tells us it will continue to grow. Even in conservative investments, it will still continue to grow over time. And again, if it's a part of your estate planning, for your heirs or what have you, or you just want to wait on it, you can, but required minimum distributions will kick in depending upon your year of birth, and you'll have to start taking some minimum distributions. Now, with the 65% and the 35%, you can actually treat them differently going into retirement. You can defer the whole thing, or you can say that 65%, I'm going to wait to determine when or how I want to start to get that annuity or use life stage retirement income, kind of let that stay. But I need that 35% to derive income from my account balances. So you can do that. You can roll that 35% into UMPIP, leave that 65%. You can go ahead and get that 65% benefit, roll that the 35% into UMPIP, and defer that. I mean, again, there's options and flexibility that's there. So we look at MPP now together, but actually when it's benefit election time, you have two different things to think about and how you want to approach that 65% and that 35%. We recommend you roll it over to UMPIP. It's not here on the slide, but I just point out when we get into this in a little more detail that CRISP DC automatically rolls to UMPIP. This 35%, we have you make an election to go to UMPIP. But these are your account balances. And if you decide you want to roll that money out to another investment vehicle, you're eligible to do that at that time. But always remember the housing allowance tax exclusions, like a yellow flag. You want to make sure that you're covered with your housing allowance tax exclusion if you're considering rolling the money out to a financial advisor who has a very good investment vehicle set up that you want to take advantage of. Just want to make sure that you do the math on that first. And then lastly, for the employer-provided retirement accounts, we have the pre-82 plan. This is the plan that was in place before the MPP came along in 1982. This provides a lifetime monthly benefit payment for you. And we actually do two calculations to determine the amount of monthly payments we're going to provide for you. And it's self-evident, but we're going to make that decision for you. The first is, we look again at years of service, so pre-82 years of service. And then each annual conference has their annual conference past service rate. We do the multiplication there, divide by 12, come up with an amount. Or at the time in which the pre-82 plan was the active plan, not all, but most annual conferences funded in an account under the participant's name an amount. So we're giving contributions into an account with the intention of providing the annuity benefit in retirement, so way down the road. Now, we went over to the MPP plan, but that account has stayed invested under the participant's name and has grown all the way through. So it's an account balance with a fancy name called defined benefit service money. It's a great example of the time value of money. We're going to use Reverend James here as an example to go through these two calculations that we just looked at. So $629 is the past service rate for this year for Holston. And it's 2 years in our example of service time. We come up with an amount, which I didn't fill in. We come up with an amount, we divide by 12, and you get 104.84. Now we look at that defined benefit service money, and it has grown through all of this decades now. It has grown. So let's just say, this is an example. It's $75,000. We run it through the annuity algorithm, and it comes up with an annual benefit of $2,100. We divide that by 12, it's $175. Well, like I said, we're going to make the decision as to what we're going to pay you. We're going to pay you the greater of those two amounts. So we're going to pay you that $175. Now, at the end of each year, I believe in November of each year, and after the past service rate it has been increased through annual conference, doesn't happen every year, but most years I think there is an increase. We redo that calculation. And if we ever got to a point where the 2 years times the past service rate divided by 12 was greater than the 175, we switch it over and we give the participant the higher amount. So 177, 178, we will do that. So each year we're looking and testing what the amount's going to be. And if it ever exceeds that initial calculated amount, in our example, 175, you'll get that greater amount. Honestly, I think the disparity between the two is so large now that that may never really happen, but it's still something we do each and every year. Again, you receive a monthly income benefit from this. If you're single, it's single life, no refund, no other options, single life annuity, and the benefit ceases upon your death. If you're a married participant, it is a life and 70% survivorship annuity, and that's actually another element that is set by the annual conference. So it's a life and 70% annuity. So the participant passes, the spouse would get 70%. And then when the spouse passes, no further benefit to anyone else. And that marriage had to occur at the time in which the benefit was being elected. And then that gets us to the UMPIP, but I will come back to the question box. Okay, hopefully this is coming out articulate enough without any questions. So let's go take another sip of water. We have the UMPIP plan, United Methodist Personal Investment Plan, or UMPIP. As you can tell already, we do love our acronyms in the employee benefits world, especially with HealthFlex. If you're in HealthFlex as well, we got all kinds of acronyms going on there. So the United Methodist Personal Investment Plan, it is a defined contribution. It is a qualified 403B plan. In our parlance, everybody talks about 401ks. Well, for us, because we're not-for-profit, it's a 403B plan, very similar, although we do have some additional options available to us as a church plan. The plan will take plan sponsor contributions as well as, or employer contributions, as well as participant contributions, which we'll review via payroll deduction. There is a 1% additional match. If you're in UMPIP for 1% or more, you get that additional 1%. And the contribution limits are set by the IRS, and that's actually the next slide. With these account balances, again, it's your personal investment plan account balance. You can self-manage how you want to use the Wespath funds and allocate your account balances and your continuing contributions, or you can use LifeStage Investment Management to do that for you. It is a defined contribution plan. The IRS, through law and regulation, defines for us how much you can contribute on an annual basis. So right now for 2024, we're probably a month away from getting the 2025 dollar amounts. $23,000 is the limit for before tax and Roth combined. We're going to get into them, but when they look at the limits, it's a combined limit. If you're over 50 or 50 and over, you get a $7,500 catch-up, which leads the amount to $30,500, and then there's whatever the employer is providing an annual limit for this year of $69,000. We rightly admit these are robust numbers that are out there, and we'll just touch on that again on the way out of this segment. But certainly, if you have an opportunity as a household to get up to these limits, it's advisable to try to do that if you can. The most common forms of personal contributions is the before tax contribution and the Roth contribution account. The before tax contribution, and I'm thinking most are probably in that. We are seeing more a mid-career and young career on an age-based, not career-based, but on an age-based basis, thinking about and taking advantage of the Roth. But for the most part, the before tax contribution has been around for forever now. And basically what happens here is that your contributions are tax deferred, the earnings on those contributions are tax deferred, and you do not have to pay any taxes until you begin to receive that as ordinary income as part of your retirement income stream in retirement. Okay, so how it works on the front end is you have your monthly gross pay. You have your monthly gross pay, and then the calculated amount, be it a percentage basis or a dollar basis of the before tax contribution, comes out and goes to the UMPIP plan, and then the rest gets taxed. Okay, so again, that has not been taxed, it's tax deferred, and the earnings on that would be tax deferred. When you begin to receive that as retirement income, it is ordinary income and exposed to ordinary income taxes. But again, you have the housing allowance tax exclusion available to you. So some, maybe most, in some instances, maybe all, won't be taxed at all because of the housing allowance exclusion, but it does come out at that time as ordinary income. With the Roth contribution account, this is technically an after-tax contribution account. So what happens is you have that monthly gross payment amount. We calculate the percentage or dollar amount that you have determined you want, but we don't move it over yet. We just do the calculation. We still have that gross amount, and we're applying all the taxes, the SECA/FICA taxes, state, federal, whatever, coming through, and we get all those taxes. And then that calculated amount, after all the taxes have been taken, goes into the Roth account. If you qualify the Roth account, which is here, and I'll explain, it's very simple to do. If you qualify the Roth account, then all of your income from the Roth account in retirement comes out tax-free. You've already paid the taxes on it. So the Treasury's like, you front-loaded the taxes now, you went with the Roth contribution account. So the benefit you get from that is the earnings on that will come out tax-free. For it to come out that way, to be qualified, the first thing is you have to be over age 59 and a half. It's a magic number in the retirement world. But again, this is a retirement account. So it is designed for retirement income purposes. So if you're over age 59 and a half, and the very first Roth contribution is aged up 5 years. It has to be 5 years old or older, but just that first contribution. Not every contribution or not every year's contribution on a rolling basis. It's just that first one. So you start at age 45 and you're looking at 59 and a half, you're in the clear as far as that account coming out. This is a good consideration because it's more tax efficiency consideration, but you most definitely want to talk to the EY Financial Planning Services line or your own financial advisor and all of that, because you want to make sure you take advantage of the before tax contribution and your housing allowance. You have that covered. Well, maybe you can put some money into the Roth account later on, maybe the last 5, 7, 8 years of your ministry to have a little bit more coming out tax-free. So that's how you get into the financial planning aspects of all this. And again, tax efficiency planning. The UMPIP does accept rollovers from other qualified retirement arrangements. So a traditional IRA, not a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, other 403B plans, 401k plans, government 457 plans. As long as it's a qualified employer retirement account, you can roll it over into the UMPIP. There's 2 ways of doing it. There's an indirect rollover way where it comes through you, you pay taxes and true it up. at the end of the year when you file your taxes. We don't want to do that. We have the direct rollover approach. You fill out a form. My colleague, Cheryl Hatcher, you may have come across her in many of the events that she participates in. She's our rollover queen. You complete the incoming rollover form. She works with the current holder of that retirement account. It gets transferred behind the scenes. It's non-taxable to you. You've never touched it. No constructive receipt. It goes into the UMPIP, and it's available to you to receive distributions on, get its retirement income and retirement, and all of that. If you have an account, let's say in a 403B plan, could be a 401k, but in a 403B plan, where you are in the ministry of the gospel and that account is eligible for the housing allowance, just provide some documentation to that effect with the rollover form. And when we roll it into the plan, we'll flag that is eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion. And if it's not, it's not, and there'll be some taxation involved, but still, it's a good way to consolidate retirement accounts. I kind of lean that way. I've done it myself because you're not necessarily looking back at the old employer or the old organization you worked for. You get statements, maybe that kind of thing, but we think it's a good idea to consolidate because you really got all your eyes on that one retirement account working. And again, we have our funds, our plans, our programs available to you. So, good idea to consult with your tax advisor, EY, again, that whole list of individuals just to feel comfortable with it, but we do it for you. It takes 3 to 5 weeks and it's fairly seamless at the end of the day. Now, we still have the after-tax contribution account that's available. Back when the 401ks first started, after-tax got used more often because that limit was fairly low. Well, now that limit, again, is fairly robust, right? So it's $23,000, $30,500. If you have the ability, when you do your annual planning for the upcoming calendar year, to say, you know what, we actually can put in, I don't know, $35,000. Then you can structure those contributions to be either the Roth or the before tax, and then that remaining amount just go into the after-tax contribution account. Again, it's in here. It will be taxable in terms of the initial ordinary income calculation. You have your housing allowance tax exclusion, but it's available for those who, as a household or as an individual, is able to make those contributions and max out. And then we have the Compass plans. Let me just come back here. Okay. We have the Compass plan. Compass was passed at General Conference. It will be effective starting 1/1/2026. A few things to note is that for those who are already in retirement status or retirement appointment, there's absolutely no consequence whatsoever to them. Even if they're not taking all of their benefits yet, they're retired and they will get their benefits at that point in time if they are not all ready. For active clergy, what you already have in place, you will retain. So what does that mean? You have your months and years of service calculation that we're doing. So if you're now retiring for several years down the road, once we get to 12/31/2025, well, your years of service in that second bracket will be 13 years. You have that 7 years, 2007 to 2013, and then you have post, 1/1/14 forward. As of 12/31/2025, we're going to save that at 13. But the denominational average compensation will continue to go up 2% per year. So if you're not retiring until 2030, well, you can do the math. What's that DAC going to be in 2030? That's the DAC we will apply. Your years of service, as we have calculated up through to 12/31/2025, then the DAC in the year you retire, and the retirement factors are the retirement factors, be them 1.25% for the first time frame or 1%. But you still have that. You won't lose that benefit. It's a protected benefit under the law. And then the Compass plan will kick in as of 1/1/2026. And from a contributions perspective, there are 3 channels of contributions that are going to be provided as employer contributions. The very first is a fixed flat dollar amount. And, because of the delays of COVID and everything, you might have seen a few numbers, but right now we know going live 1/1/26 that flat dollar amount for clergy will be $150 per month. Now that includes hold on a second, sorry. Yeah, there we go. I'm just making sure I have everything. With that $150, there is a calculation where we're going to apply a 2% increase in that flat dollar amount each year. But you won't see an increase until we get to a $5 increment. Okay, so it may be 2027 or 2028 before you see that 150 go to 155. And again, you can just do this on an Excel spreadsheet yourself. And you get, so it's going to go up to 2%, but we don't click the increase until we hit a 5% increment. So we may go to 155, but the calculated amount was 156.50, but we're going to do the 155, if that makes sense. But we're going to continue to increase that, kind of levels the playing field. Everyone is receiving the same benefit across the denomination. Then the second channel there, we re-individualize it back to you. We're looking at your pensionable pay, and that pensionable pay does include housing allowance and or parsonage allowance. That's what I was just confirming there. It does include that. So 3% of your pensionable pay will go into the Compass plan as a contribution. And then the matching arrangement changes under Compass than it was currently with UMPIP and CRISP DC. Now there is a dollar for dollar match up to 4% of your pensionable pay. So what you want to think about, if you are not there now, is get that UMPIP contribution rate to at least 4%, because if it's at 4%, then you're maximizing the employer matching contribution. If you're at 2% and you leave it at 2%, you're going to receive a 2% employer matching contribution. But as I've said several times already, if you're at 4, but you can keep going higher and higher and higher, you do that to supplement your own retirement income. But you want to structure it in such a way that you're maximizing the employer contributions that you would be receiving throughout the course of the year and throughout the course of your time within the Compass plan. So you have the 3 different channels that will go into Compass. With the Compass plan, the employer contribution account, the account balances that are generated, you're going to go into retirement appointment down the road. Those will use life stage retirement income to derive the monthly installment benefit payment for you from your employer provided accounts. Your associated UMPIP or personal investment plan account remains yours to determine how, when, and how much income you want to derive. But within the context of the Compass plan, we're building this in a way to have it be robust enough to provide that retirement income, similar to what we do now with Pre-82 MPP and the CRSP plan. There will be more forthcoming around Compass. We in the benefit education world are actually starting to kind of knock on the doors for when we're going to hear more from a communications perspective, presentations, webinars, and all. I do know at the conference level that Tony Pestarino and Martin Bauer and others are continuing to work with the annual conferences as we begin to roll out this. And again, it's not 1/1/25, it's 1/1/26, so there is a window or a runway of time to get all this information out. So kind of scratching the surface here a little bit, if you will, but I just wanted to share this information with you. As far as investing in the account is concerned, you are invested in the Wespath, I like to say Wespath family of funds. There are several benefits of investing with Wespath, and one is we do have a diverse set of investment funds, and we've just added the U.S. Equity Index Fund to kind of give us a little bit more of that diversification. And I can't say for certainty, but I'm pretty certain that our new Chief Investment Officer, Johara, is looking at even more opportunities for some diversification. But in any type of savings, certainly in long-term types of savings arrangements, retirement savings arrangements, you want that diversity. You want to take advantage of that diversity, depending upon where you are on your time frame going towards retirement. But you want to maintain that diversity because markets fluctuate, but not all the markets fluctuate at the one time. So you're getting that kind of spread over the long term in terms of getting gains as you're in the accumulation phase. We have competitive returns relative to benchmarks. Low expense ratios, no commissions. All of that blended together really gets to the fact that we're not a retail organization. We don't have, our funds are mutual funds trading in the retail environment. We are privately managed funds And because we are who we are, we don't pay out commissions to anyone who maybe brings in a new school or hospital system that falls under the UMC or related Methodist organization. There's none of that. Our expense ratios are low because we're not providing a lot of those commissions or other ways of compensating other individuals internally or externally. And with that, we get good performance out of it, but we don't want to assume because of that we're performing correctly. So we continue to benchmark ourselves against other areas in the market, like different funds that we have. We'll compare to like funds or peers in the marketplace, just to make sure that, the expectation that we have working with our fund managers is that we are maintaining ourselves in our investment funds relative to the market, in general. I mean, everything fluctuates up and down, but that's very actively managed from our perspective. You have life stage investment management, which I'll talk about momentarily in more detail. Again, we throw out EY whenever we can. We practice sustainable investing. So in sustainable investing, it can mean a couple of things. One is, sustainability for the long haul to make sure that we're able to pay out our benefits over the long haul. We've been doing it for, 118 years, I think, something like that. We're doing it now. We have every intention to do it as far as the eye can see, and we're making the plan changes to, that kind of make sure we are contemporary with how we're structuring our plans to maintain that sustainability for the long haul. But also it means practicing environmental and social and governance principles as we invest. We look at companies and whether or not we want to be in those companies or industries in general. We look at other foreign sovereign countries. Do we want to have any part of their sovereign bonds, their treasuries, or any companies that are involved in any of those countries? So we do have some screening in there that maintains and upholds not just the ability for us to sustain payments over the long haul, but to uphold the values of the church today and going forward. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about how we practice that on an ongoing basis. So again, aligned with the values of the UMC. Quickly, I'll go through the various funds by various fund type or asset class. The first is our short-term income funds. It's kind of like a capital preservation fund. It's the stable value fund. Here, the fund is designed to have a very, very low rate of interest, a very, very, very low rate of risk, but to preserve the capital. It's intentional. Someone who's, actually, I just turned 60, I wouldn't even touch the stable value fund just yet. I would still want to have some risk in there, but as I really start getting into retirement, then the allocation, including that, would make more sense because not only do I need accounts to grow, I need to make sure I'm getting that retirement income. So that's how we kind of structure that. We have the other fixed income funds or our bond funds. We have three, and these are kind of like in risk category as well. The first is the Inflation Protection Fund. These are actually we have purchased bonds called Treasury Inflation Protection Bonds. Those bonds are designed to help keep pace with purchasing power over time. So we're trying to maintain the pacing of domestic inflation with this fund. We want to do a little bit better, obviously. You always want to do a little bit better, but we really are kind of making sure we're tracking and trending against that part of the domestic economy. We have the Fixed Income Fund. This is one of our largest and most broad investment funds that we have, because we're not only looking at fixed income relative to and these are debt instruments, right? So treasuries from the United States Treasury of all different lengths and duration, different types, notes, bonds, bills, as well as sovereign nations. Again, friendly sovereign nations, those through our screening process that we would be bringing into the portfolio. But also debt that companies provide. So a lot of companies will provide their debt. We purchase that debt. We bring them in. Again, it'll be domestic companies. It'll be international companies. So there's a wide range of different types of securities that will come in there. With that wider range comes a greater rate of risk. Not a high rate of risk, but a more risk gets associated with that. And so there's a higher potential rate of return from that type of investment. And then the last is the Extended Term Fixed Income Fund. Quickly, this is the long end of the bond market. 10 years that we hear about in the paper all the time, 30 years, even though 10 years drive mortgages, people think it's 30 years, but we hear about those all of the time. Basically, we're investing in just those securities, and nobody knows what the inflation is going to look like next week, next month, next year. So with that, there's an added rate of risk, kind of like a premium risk, because there's an unknown there. So with that risk, there's a higher rate of potential return. But still, it's a fixed income. It's still somewhat more tame relative to company stock funds. And I have an illustration of risk and return that will come up shortly. And then we have the equity funds and the balance fund. But first, I'd like to draw your attention to the equity funds. These are company stock funds. We are buying, shares, percentages of companies and building on the investment funds that way. We have the U.S. Equity Index Fund. That is the fund that rolled out just several months ago. And that is designed in such a way to track the broader market, not just the S&P 500, but the broader market as it grows. So we use the Russell 3000, which is a broad range of companies and stocks that are in that. And there's higher rate of risk, company stocks. The U.S. Equity Fund is a more pared down. It's not trying to track a particular index, but we are building it in such a way to obviously outperform the markets to the extent that we can. But here we're going to be building it with domestic companies, foreign companies, high growth companies like we hear on TV all the time, Apple and Microsoft and all that, but also mid-sized companies, smaller companies, but still publicly traded in the markets. We bring all that in. Are they growth? Are they value? What's their market capitalization? We put that in there. So there's a lot of moving parts in that. There's a lot of companies involved in that. So there's some risk involved in that. And company stock, we know, always has that risk. And then the International Equity Fund, same principle as the equity fund, except we're now going to the to foreign countries to get those foreign companies built into this fund, but still large, mid, small capitalization size in the market. Are they growth funds? Are they value funds that we anticipate growth later on? All that gets built in. But with international, that's your highest rate of risk because there's a lot of unknowns relative to different types of foreign companies. And it's not always just geopolitics, it's currency exchanges and things like that. And what's happening in their debt markets and how is that affecting their company stocks over there. So there's a high rate of risk, highest rate of risk really. And then we get the high rate of potential return. Then there's the balance fund, and the balance fund is our multiple asset fund. And the way we do it here, which I think is smart, is we actually do a fund of funds. What we're trying to do is, if you think back 5 minutes to that diversification conversation where you want a range of different types of investments for your long-term investing because you want to get that growth going while you're allowing the markets to do their thing. Well, instead of it just being built on its own, we use the funds that we already have in place. And then we grab 35% of the U.S. equity fund, 30% of the international equity fund, 25% of the fixed income, 10% of the inflation protection fund, and we put it together there. This is more of a set and static type of allocation. There's going to be some variability in there, but we try to keep it that way. But it's a fund for an individual to go in, and it's kind of a off-the-shelf, made-at-home type of diversification fund that is available to you. So those are the equity funds and then the balance fund that we have there. We also have a subset of funds called the Social Values Choice Suite of Funds. As I said, we practice sustainable investing, and there are some funds that get kind of carved out and manufactured in a way that actually heightens the focus on companies' environmental and social performance, companies and foreign countries as well. And there are 3 funds that come into play here. We have a U.S. Treasury Inflation Protection again, the Social Values Choice Bond Fund. It'll be a wider range of funds. And then we have the Social Values Choice Equity Fund. So these are kind of, I might be misspeaking a little bit, like carve-outs, but these funds are really designed more for individuals and organizations that have that heightened sense of sustainability and how they want to approach it. So these are available at the participant level. This is that potential risk and rate of return. So you have the risk there at the bottom. Again, stable value fund. It's intended to have no real risk, but no real rate of return either because of what it's designed to do. But then we can see it adding more risk, but you still have that carve out. Fixed income funds. They have some risk associated with them, but they're not as risky as equity funds. So we kind of lay that out for you in terms of the risk spectrum there, the multiple asset there in the middle, and then the equity funds that we have and what the risk and return is on that. And again, the International Equity Fund is the fund with the most risk, with the most potential rate of return. This scaling is done on a historical basis. As we know, at any point in time, it can go topsy-turvy and upside down with events that occur in the markets, getting all crazy. But as we also know that over time, they come back to normalization, and this pattern would continue on going into the future with the ups and downs. As it comes to you and making a choice as to how you want to manage your investment funds, as I indicated, you can choose your own mix. The one there on the right, you want to self-manage. You can go ahead and self-manage, choose your own investment mix. This is something that you want to pay attention to if you are going to do that. I've been doing that. I'm not looking at it every day, but periodically I do check. And if I want to make a modification, I'll make a modification. But the other side of that is life stage investment management, where you're asking us to drive the investment allocation for you. And just on a personal note, right now I'm self-managing to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable. Then I'm going to put my accounts into life stage investment management. These options are available to you. You can come back and forth between the two over time. You're not locked into one or the other. And again, this is another shout out to you, ZY, just to walk through the various options that are available to you. With Life Stage Investment Management, it is the program where you are asking us to tailor an investment allocation for you. It's a personalized investment management tool for your defined contribution accounts. We set an allocation and we review it quarterly. And as we go through, and I'll go through this, as we review it, we may do some reset or rebalancing of the accounts as needed. And we're managing the investments not only during your active ministry or active service, but also into and through retirement. And as I said, if you use life stage retirement income, you're in life stage investment management as well. We create a diversified investment portfolio, and we customize that or tailor that to the participant. What we're doing is we're looking at your age, potentially your spouse's age, what your expected benefits commencement date is. So we'll default to age 65 or the 40 years when we're looking at this, and risk tolerance. Now, you can set up your own life stage investment management profile. You can go onto Benefits Access and say, my benefit commencement date is going to be when I attain age 68. Right now, I want an aggressive risk tolerance. I will be receiving Social Security benefits and all that. And then we'll continue to manage it. And I'll get into the management dynamics momentarily. Or, and this happens quite a lot, and I'm going to venture to say some of you who are with us today aren't quite sure if you're self-managing or in life stage investment management. Well, for those of you, you'll be in life stage investment management. It is the default position that we have. And again, you can see this on Benefits Access. Go into your account summary, look at investment portfolio, investment funds, and you'll see it in there. If you did not direct us as to how to set up the investment allocation, we default you to a moderate, middle-of-the-road risk tolerance. We're going to assume age 65 is going to be the benefit commencement date, and then you are eligible for Social Security. So if you're not quite sure, you're already in life stage investment management. Some of you manage life stage investment management, handling on your own. I can see that, somewhat conservative. Well, with the risk tolerance, right? I said moderate, there's aggressive, there's moderate, there's conservative. It's just kind of the three, maybe like a 5 to 7% swing across each one in terms of how we allocate equities to the fixed income funds. But you can tell us how you want that to be structured, and we'll do that. But for those who default, it's moderate, benefit commencement date at 65, and eligible for Social Security benefits. Call our participant solutions or our customer solutions area. Have a one-on-one benefit education consultation with myself, other benefit educators. We can work and walk through all of this with you. Explain it to you. Now, the way it works, before I get to the rebalancing, with life stage investment management, again, we're looking at your age and we're figuring a benefit commencement date and other variables that are kind of baked into that individual participant. And then we set up an investment allocation, but we don't set it and forget it. So what happens is, let's say somebody is 50 years old and they've got another 15 years before they're going to go to retirement. We may set them up, even as a moderate risk tolerance, with 80% in the equity side and 20% in the fixed income side, because it's a long-term retirement plan with another 15 years to go before we have to start worrying about making payments. But what we do is, as we age up, that amount of equity exposure slowly and subtly comes down. That amount of fixed income exposure slowly and subtly comes up. And over time, we're on a glide path, where by the time we get to that age 65, you might be more to 55 to 45% allocation. We want that equity, we need the growth, but we want a more robust amount of fixed income because we're getting ready to start making payments into retirement income streams. So we continue to do that. And in retirement, we'll continue to manage that dynamic to make sure that we're managing the account to last through the retirement years. But with the rebalancing, the way that works is we set you up age 50, 80-20. We look at your account 4 times a year, quarterly based upon your birthdays, quarterly off of your birthday. We look and we say, hey, we want you at 80-20. Well, the equity markets have been gangbusters and the fixed income side's gone down, so now you're at 90-10. Well, it sounds good, but that's not where we want you. We want you at 80-20. So we actually will do the transfers internally to get you back to 80-20. Or the stock market's struggling and the bond markets are performing in kind, so now we're at 70-30. Well, we don't want that. We still want the 80-20. So we will go ahead and make that rebalancing adjustment to do that again to get you to 80-20. And because we do that, we actively manage on a quarterly and annual basis the investment allocation. I'm allowed to say there is a higher rate of internal rate of return because we're managing it that actively while we're doing the longer term glide path to get you to and into retirement. So it's a very powerful program for the investment allocation. A lot of people, I think clearly most participants are in life stage investment management. Again, anybody in MPP is, you got to carve that out there. But this is certainly something to think about, do some research on, talk to EY or whomever to really get a good handle on it. But it's a very good program, very strong program. Again, we're looking at it in the here and now as well as over the long haul. So that's how life stage works. With our investment funds, we got a ton of information available to you on wespath.org or benefitaccess.org. You can get your daily values. These do function like mutual funds, so we do get priced every day. Then we get fund descriptions. You can get the high-level executive summary of the fund, or you can go and get the PDF that's 80 pages long that gives you all the information about how that particular investment fund is working and all the investments that are there and all of that. Again, we do compare ourselves. We have benchmarks. And then the fees. The thing about fees with us is we have our funds, and each fund has an expense ratio or fee, and it ranges from like 0.34% to 0.78%, something like that, depending upon the fund, right? Those fees, those operating expenses, what kicks off from the investment funds and pays the overhead for programs like life stage investment management, life stage retirement income, the use of EY financial planning services. There's no out-of-pocket expense to utilize any of these programs because we're all kind of paying for it through the operating expenses of the investment funds. But you can see what our fee ratios or our expense ratios are on our website. With distributions in retirement, you're in retirement, you're receiving your annuities, maybe you've set up 65% LSRI, we still have these account balances that are available to you. You can take advantage of life stage retirement income. The next segment we're going to go through, you can self-manage your retirement income account. Keeping this clustered to just your DC account balances, okay? PIP, CRIS DC, 35% MPP. If you use life stage retirement income, and there's one exception, of course, but if you use life stage retirement income or self-managed, you can always go back and forth with your account balances. With life stage retirement income and at 65%, if you choose the life stage retirement income, you'll remain in the program through that. But options and flexibility. You can take a full lump sum of these accounts. A lot of considerations there. One, it's out of the plan, not providing retirement income for you. If you decided to take the full lump sum and roll it over somewhere else, have it managed there, again, you want to ensure that wherever it lands, that individual, that organization or entity is able to declare your income is eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion. Like I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm comfortable at 99% that it's going to be difficult to find another investment vehicle outside of Wespath that you get that housing allowance tax exclusion. Now you can do a partial lump sum. Partial lump sums, a lot of that gets baked into getting a living quarters set up going into retirement. Or maybe somebody has their housing allowance tax exclusion completely covered and they want to take some of their account and put it into another investment vehicle. I mean, it's not like there aren't other investment vehicles that could be outperforming Wespath, but again, you want to be thinking about it in the context of the full umbrella of what you receive from your income benefits, your tax efficiency benefits with us. At death, there's a remaining balance to your beneficiaries we've gone through. The RMDs, I got a couple of slides on that with the RMDs, so some redundancies coming into play here. But another thing that I want to point out to you that's not on the slide. Right now in the UMPIP, your personal accounts in the UMPIP, you can take a loan out. You can take a 5-year loan out for any reason. You can take a 15-year loan out if it is to purchase a primary residence. In retirement, you retain that loan provision. It's really unheard of. It's the way we structure the repayments of the loans that allows us to do it. In the secular world, companies are like, I'm not dealing with loan repayments anymore. So we have it set up in such a way that in retirement, you can still take a loan. So let's say you need $12,000 to go on that big trip or fix the roof. And you look at the landscape and say, you know what, I don't need to take it out as a distribution and have it all go through the tax form. I'll just take it out as a loan, 5 years, pay it back to myself with interest, right? So some of that wear away is coming back through the form of interest. And that goes back into your account, eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion again down the road. Now, life stage retirement income. I'll take a second here just to see, because I know I'm cooking with gas. I just want to make sure that, okay. So with life stage retirement income, this is an award-winning program, Pension Investments, right? Pension Investments Magazine, which is a big player in the space, did give us an award a couple of years ago. It's designed to optimize your account to provide monthly retirement income for you. Kind of like a Goldilocks type of thing. So people go into retirement, and some people spend too much, maybe because of the enthusiasm of it, or just the numbers in the planning didn't fall into place right, and they're kind of exhausting a little too quick. And there are many people who, because of other estate planning issues and such, don't take out as much as they can. And really kind of get the most out of their retirement years. So this is a way in which we can kind of help balance those competing things to ensure that there's retirement income coming out from your account balances that is designed to last throughout your retirement. What we do is it's a very sophisticated algorithm. We're applying the principles of an annuity. We're applying the principles of actuarial mathematics and mortality tables and all of that. And going in to determine the initial amount of income from life stage retirement income, they do what they call stochastic modeling. So they go through thousands of different market assumptions or market modeling. And they get really, really strong markets over the long haul, really, really weak markets over the long haul. And it sets up kind of guardrails or goalposts, right? What we do is we calculate an amount, we call it the payment safety zone. Calculated amount, we kick the field goal. We said going into retirement, we can give you this amount on a monthly basis going into retirement. But each November, we recalculate the amount with the intention and the practice of giving increases over time to help keep pace with purchasing power. So built into this algorithm is that long-term view, and your investment funds are in life stage investment management. They work in tandem. And so that investment moving forward will provide that lift to continue to allow for increases to help with purchasing power over time. Now, life stage investment management, investment funds, we could have a bad year in the market. We could have a down year in the market. Because we have these goalposts and we have a down year in the market, you may not necessarily see a decrease 1 year over the next. You just may not see an increase. If you have a particularly bad year, the timing is such, it happens to be around November, you could see a decrease in the amount from 1 year to the next, but markets normalize and come back with the expectation of get you back on that line to get you those increases over time. So the goal is to provide that monthly income to last through you and your spouse's retirement. All right. There is a modeling tool on benefit access. My understanding is we have to have your eligible to retire date, certainly intends to retire date, they'll activate, but there has to be an eligible to retire date at this time. So other individuals may not be able to see the modeling tool, but certainly once we know you're getting ready to go into retirement, all of this becomes available to you. And again, we have the retirement services team. You have other resources, myself, EY, to help you through that. We combine the balances into the UMPIP. You can decide how much you want to put in the program. So as I said, this program, when it's just your defined contribution accounts, you can go into and go out of as your circumstances change throughout your retirement. But also you could say, I have X amount of dollars. I want to have kind of like a reserve fund off to the side, a fund or an emergency fund, and take maybe 80, 85% of what those account balances are. Put that into life stage retirement income. You can pull back from that. You can add to it. Maybe that emergency fund isn't needed, so you can put that in there. So again, flexibility. So you can determine how you want to do that. And again, the amount that we are looking at is dependent upon some of your demographics, your age, spouse's age, and all of that. Additionally, we have flexibility and choice. So the core of life stage retirement income is the goalpost, the payment safety zone. What can we get you going into retirement? But we have two other options available to you. One is a Social Security bridge, where you're using your account balances to offset the fact that you're deferring receiving your Social Security until, let's say, age 70 with those additional delayed retirement credits. You're delaying that. You're using your account balances. Then there's also a longevity income protection annuity contract, where going into retirement and making your elections, behind the scenes, the algorithm determines an amount that's available to you to purchase this longevity income protection contract. Okay, so we're going to go through both again. With the Social Security bridge, we all have a full retirement age under Social Security. Depends upon the year you were born. Some people might be 66 and 8 months, 66 and 10 months. I was born in 1964, so I'm age 67. So you have early retirement with reductions. You have your full retirement age at your full benefit. But you can delay receiving your Social Security benefits up to age 70, and you receive delayed retirement credits. That translates to 8% increase per year of deferral of your Social Security income. So that's 24% increase in your Social Security income. And what we say is, after we've done the calculation for the payment safety zone, you tell us, and how you enroll into the program, how much you want us to take additionally from your account balances, just keep you whole for the month, for the year, while you're deferring your actual Social Security until you attain age 70. You don't have to wait until age 70. Plans change all the time. If you're 68 and a half, 69, and you know what, I need Social Security, you still get those increases. But now you let us know that, and we'll level off and stop providing that additional amount, that as if Social Security amount, and just come back down to that payment safety zone, that core life stage retirement income amount. And then also, when it says the investment allocation is adjusted, this is a way in which we use the stable value fund, that fund that's low risk, low return. We calculate how much we're gonna use as a part of the bridge, and we'll invest it in there, so it's not exposed to the market activity that your other accounts could be, to make sure that that's working the way it's supposed to work. Then we have the longevity income protection contract. This is a deferred fixed annuity that you purchase at the time you're making your benefit elections. You're going through benefit access and all the modeling tools and everything, you're making your elections, and we actually calculate $86,000 is available to you to purchase this contract. You purchase it at that time. So this is an exception to the rule of changing between the two. Once you purchase that contract is purchased, and it'll begin to pay. It begins to pay when you attain age 80. So it's a deferred annuity contract that down the road, when you turn age 80, we're now kicking in that additional amount of guaranteed income that you and your spouse cannot outlive. And we're again going to level the amounts that are coming out of your account balances, dollar for dollar reduction, to make sure that sustainability on your account balances continues over time. So here you might see a reduction in the amount, but it's really because you're getting that fixed income, and we're continuing to give you increases over time. So you have this new contract that kicked in, you have CRSPDB, MPP 65%, let's say you took the annuity, okay? And then you have your Social Security, your spouse's Social Security. And so it kind of cascades itself down from that. If you pass before your spouse would begin to see the benefit when you would have attained age 80. It's with California Pacific, I think, Pacific Life, yeah, Pacific Life. is the vendor that we use right now, and they consider us an employer, so a group, so it's reduced fees in terms of going into the contract in the first place. And again, payments begin at age 80. So it's kind of illustratively, how does it work? You go into life stage retirement income, you're age 67, you're getting your payment safety zone amount. And then here, it's not really illustrated well, but let's say you're getting your Social Security bridge amount as well. And then at age 70, you are receiving your Social Security. So you can see that we've leveled off what's coming out of your accounts at a life stage, right? So that as if Social Security, we're not paying that out to you anymore because you are receiving your Social Security. And if you did a deferral, you're receiving it at that enhanced amount, be it 24%, 18%, 12%, whatever the case may be, but you're getting that then. And then when you attain age 80, well, that longevity income protection contract comes in, another stream of guaranteed income. It is a life and 70% annuity. So the participant passes for the spouse gets 70% annuity, and the two of you cannot outlive it. So you have your Social Security, you have that additional guaranteed contract kicking in and making payments. We do reduce down what's coming out of your account balances for life stage, but that dynamic of doing the calculation each year with increases continues throughout your retirement. Financial planning, retirement income planning, tax efficiency planning. Is this right for me, this program? You know, you got to think about health issues, longevity, those types of things. Some people have opted out of Social Security, right? They can't use the Social Security bridge because they've opted out of it. But also, hopefully, those people who've opted out of Social Security, and if you're one of them, another sidecar investment vehicle has been established to kind of be that as if Social Security amount. People who are past Social Security age and they don't qualify, people taking Social Security, because this is fairly new. So we had many participants who were already receiving Social Security, so this was not available. The contract remained available, but this did not. And then, you know, any other incomes that you have all comes into play as you think through the individual decision making that you have when it relates to this. Required minimum distributions. Again, you can leave your account balances, your defined contribution account balances on account, let them stay invested, let them, grow over time. That's what history tells us, grow over time. But the IRS steps in at a particular age, and it's gotten a little more complicated over the last few years, and says, hey, you've deferred long enough. We need to generate a little tax revenue out of these accounts that you have, so you have to start taking your required minimum distributions. For many, many years, it was 70 and a half. Then the Secure Act 1.0 made it 72, and then I'm gonna cheat. Right, so 51 through 58, it's age 73. Anybody from 59 on, it's age 75. You have to start taking your required minimum distributions. And again, if it's in your plan in such a way, that even though it's an RMD coming out for tax purposes, still eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion. The way it works is the year you attain the appropriate age, be it 73 or 75. You don't have to actually take your first RMD that year. You can defer it till April 1st of the following year, so March 31st of the following year, to take that initial RMD. It's calculated as of the year you attain the age. You can get it in that first quarter, but just note that you are taking a second one that year because it's that year's RMD that you have to take. But some people will delay it and then take the two at that point in time. It does relate to your defined contribution accounts, so that PIP, CRISPC, 35% of MPP. Each year, the amount that is required for you to pay is calculated internally within our systems. The IRS has an elaborate table. It says, this is your age, this is this, and we come with the calculations. I think by the end of the first quarter of each year, we know what everybody's R&D would be for that particular calendar year. And there is tax consequences. Now, they've reduced the amount of tax penalty from 50% to, I think, 20, maybe 25%. If you did not take an R&D and you were otherwise required to, you'd have the ordinary income piece, right? Took a distribution, but then there would be another, I'm going to say 20% penalty piece on that as well. We will work with you once we flag you in the system as you need to start taking R&Ds. So you'll be hearing from us to make sure that we work with you to not expose you to that additional taxation. And again, it was 70 and a half for a long time. It went to 72 for a brief period of time, but based on your year of birth is your RMD age. And also note that as long as you are still a W-2 employee receiving W-2 income, you don't have to start taking your RMD until you cease becoming a W-2 employee. So, If you're working at age 75, because that's what you choose to do, you don't necessarily have to start taking your RMDs. It's when you actually stop employment that you begin your RMDs. We have to take, under law, we have to take federal tax withholding on distributions. If we are not given any direction relative to how you want your taxes to be taken, for the RMD on the right-hand side, we're going to withhold 10%. But any other distribution that we receive, that we provide for you, you receive, it's going to be a 20% withholding. Now, when you are making your elections, you have to physically tell us on the application online to go any other percent besides 20%. So if you want to go to 0, and it happens periodically, because some people are actually looking at the housing allowance exclusion and kind of looking at it from that perspective, but you need to direct us to do that. We can't assume anything. So if we have nothing from you, the whole withholding 20%, we're going to withhold the 10% on the RMD. So just, some things to work through, again, as you get into the nuance of things, as you get closer to making your elections. This, again, we're using 2025 as our modeling year. For 2025, they want to make your elections by that Monday, June 30th, 3 o'clock Central Time. And what happens here is we bump into the 4th of July. So when we bump into the 4th of July, people may not see their initial payments until the 8th of July. They may see their payments on the 3rd of July, but that first tranche, that July 1st timeframe for the new retirees, there's an elaborate reconciliation process that has to be followed to make sure that all of the elections went through, all the calculations through. So just an added day or two of due diligence on our part, and then we release. Thereafter, you will receive your annuity payments the first business day of each month, your payments from your cash accounts or life stage retirement income or your own self-managed installment on the 2nd or 3rd business day of the month. We have our 3rd there, but I think we're pretty good with the 1st and then the 2nd. So the first one is just a delay. The delay is twofold, making sure we did it all right, because we're retiring 800 to 1,000 people, and 4th of July lands. So this year may not be an issue for 4th of July, but the last couple of years we did have the issue around the 4th of July. Okay, we're getting into the home stretch. Okay, let's see. Just trying to see if there were any questions, but here we go. Panel. Okay. All right, I mentioned this several times, the housing allowance tax exclusion in retirement. Clergy enjoy the housing allowance tax exclusion in retirement throughout your retirement. So it's not just while you're in active ministry in it. It does come up on one-on-one benefit education consultations. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. You get housing allowance in retirement. But the way it works, which is similar to housing allowance anyway, prior to retirement, is you have to generate 3 numbers. And in the PDFs that I sent you or will send you, there's a housing allowance exclusion worksheet that is built, that's part of those documents, okay? So the front page is not to be filed with your taxes, but it's help you and your accountant, tax preparer to figure out your housing. So the first is, what's the amount designated as the housing allowance, okay? 100% of what you receive as income in retirement from Wespath is eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion in retirement. And that is because your annual conference, in the annual journal, each year has a resolution that gets passed that says, in the next calendar year, all the income our retiree appointees receive from Wespath is eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion. So other than taking out that resolution the year you're retiring and put it in a folder, you don't have to worry about it. It's done automatically through that cycle through annual conference in the annual journal. But the second number is, what is the amount you actually expended on your housing allowance? So this includes not just the big numbers, like if you own your house, mortgage and interest and homeowners insurance. If you're renting, what's your renter's insurance? What's the amount of rent itself? Your renter's insurance. All the utilities and cell phone and all of that. But also household cleaning products, landscaping, snow removal, those things all apply. You want to keep that spreadsheet, or however you record that, as robust as possible to keep the receipts. One thing I hadn't said yet is, of these 3 numbers I'm reviewing, it's the lowest or the least of the 3 is what you're going to apply for that year's tax, the housing allowance tax exclusion. So you have your actual housing expenses. This is not advice, I'm going to caveat. But if anybody is out there considering, hey, let me pay off my mortgage before I go into retirement, talk to your tax advisor before you do such. Because some people will do that, and then that middle area there, that actual housing expenses, contracts a little bit too much. So just something to consider in your planning. It's counterintuitive, but something to consider. Then the third is, if you own your residence, what is the fair rental value of that residence, fully furnished, plus utilities, in the neighborhood that you live? So it's a little market model that the IRS has you do to where you live. Here we recommend you go to a realtor and get a comp letter, comparison letter from them. But we hear people using Zillow and similar types of websites to derive what they can get from renters. You know, rental amounts go up each year. So you just want to make sure you can keep with that trend. But now you have the three numbers. What did you actually get from Wespath? What's your actual housing expenses? What's the fair rental value of the place? And it's the lowest or the least of those three numbers that comes right off the top of your tax filing for that year. And the remainder goes on to the 1040 and all of that with all the other exclusions and deductions and credits that you get. Now, I probably misspoke there. Everything goes on to 1040, but you get the drift. That housing allowance exclusion will get eliminated, and the adjusted gross income still has other things that can get applied to it to reduce that down even more. So a great tax benefit that you have. Quick example, Reverend Waters receives $24,000 as pension income, which has been declared eligible for the housing allowance exclusion. Actual amount spent on housing, $20,000. This person could rent their place, annualized $21,000 for the year. What's the amount of the exclusion? $20,000. And again, the amount taxable is $4,000, but doesn't mean it's all going to get taxed, because there are other exclusions, deductions, and credits that are available in the tax code. So again, a great benefit. It's available to retired clergy. It's not applicable to the surviving spouse unless it's a clergy couple. Then obviously they both will get it at that point in time. In the year in which the clergy person may pass and the surviving spouse is there, the number of months is the proportion of the housing allowance you can apply for that year. It's only available for primary residences. On that housing allowance exclusion worksheet on the back, I think it's like the fourth paragraph on the back, the last sentence, we just recommend your tax preparer, whoever files the 1040, just puts a sentence on there and says, we are applying housing allowance on this, just in case something kicks off and somebody looks at it and they go, oh, it's the housing allowance, no problem. And again, your conference journal has that in there. With the comprehensive protection plan, the welfare plans, death and disability benefits, while plan eligibility for CPP is mandatory participation for eligible clergy serving full-time, the compensation is at least 25% of the denominational average compensation for that year. Plan sponsor election, it can be a 3/4 time and leave of absence. So these are more particulars to your annual conference. Not eligible or clergy appointed half-time or quarter time. For the death benefit, it can be provided to active and retired clergy, spouses, surviving spouses, a child. There's a death benefit if an unfortunate event of a child passing away, the surviving child benefits, and then a minimum surviving spouse retirement benefit. In retirement, again, years of service, eligibility is you're eligible to receive a benefit from CRSP. It'll change to Compass at times of retirement, and enrolled in CPP for 12 of the last 15 years, or active participation in CPP for 25 years. So we're looking at two different time frames, recognizing two different time frames for ministry. At the same time, we're recognizing the time frames to determine eligibility for the death benefit in retirement. And as a result of General Conference 2024, we have harmonized the death benefit for the pre-retiree and the retiree. With one differentiation, the benefits basically look the same. So for an active participant, that's the active part, you still get the $50,000. But there's all kinds of calculations for the other surviving benefits. Now that $50,000 remains for an active person who passes. Retired participant who passes, that amount is $24,000. If the participant passes and the spouse subsequently passes, $16,000 will get provided to the named designated beneficiary of that surviving spouse. The surviving spouse retires, $12,000 will go to the named designated beneficiaries of that individual. And again, if it doesn't matter if they're active or retired, but if there is a Unfortunate situation where an eligible child, and that's on some forms, an eligible child passes away, there is a benefit that would go to either the active clergy person or surviving spouse in the amount of the $8,500. So we're maintaining the death benefit, we've harmonized it, and instead of waiting for the quadrennial general conference, these benefits will go up 2% each year. So it's one of those things that we baked in with some of the resolutions that we made just to keep the plan more efficient in terms of its running. For those still in active ministry, there is still the long-term disability benefit that is provided. In retirement, you're retired, but if you're still in active ministry and you are unable to perform duties due to injury or illness for at least 6 continuous months, then you are on long-term disability. Now, there is a process that has to be followed. And when you consider the fact that somebody is already dealing with something that has them going on, and the household's dealing with something as long-term disability, you do have to file all the paperwork. You need all your medical, whatever medical provider that you have, depending upon the source and course of this particular disability, you need to do that. And periodically, you're going to have to continue to provide that documentation to just show, it's good stewardship, to show that that disability benefit is still warranted. The way it works is you are, as far as we use Lincoln Financial to do the review of the case, and then you're approved for disability through that process. 70% of your pre-disability plan compensation, so again, it's housing or parsonage in cash, right? That will be provided to you as a benefit. Your compensation will go up 3% per year. So that 70% will go up 3% per year. Your contributions, your employer contributions, will continue to be made now in CRSP, down the road into Compass. I'm 90% certain that you're going to want to maintain your UMPIP contribution to maximize that Compass employer contribution, but still the first 2 channels, the base amount and the 3% of comp, will continue to go into the plan. People, after they go on long-term disability, will then apply for Social Security long-term disability. If you are approved for long-term disability through Social Security, we do a dollar-for-dollar reduction. What's your Social Security benefit compared to that 70%? And we keep you overall at that 70%, right? Applying that Social Security offset. Well, we'll still continue to increase compensation, that 3% per year, and all the contributions and all of that will go along with that increase year over year. If Social Security turns you down for Social Security disability income, but we still have you as eligible for our long-term disability income, we'll keep you at that 70%. So there's no real issue if you get that. And it's not uncommon for someone to have to go through the process twice. That's just kind of the way it works with those courts. Now we are certainly in the home stretch. Wespath participant resources. Again, consider us to be a resource. Today we are, operationalizing a resource. We love to do our webinars. We love to do our seminars. We do the one-on-one benefit education consultations. We have our customer solutions area. And again, we have EY Financial Planning Services. They provide holistic household financial planning services to all of us without any additional cost. So like I said, operating expenses, those fees pay for this program, but there's no out-of-pocket expense to us to use EY. There's no number of phone calls or number of hours that you can have. It's unlimited. So it's up to you and how much you need, want, and they want to work with you in terms of your situation. There's no limit on that whatsoever. They can talk to you about how can you afford housing in retirement. They can work with you, now and down the road and throughout. What does my income look like? We recommend anybody and everybody, no matter their age, should start working. It's free financial planning service. So, it's like financial advice. Maybe a small A, but still, they can weigh in a lot more than we can at Wespath. Benefit election options. Do I go with the higher or do I go with the lower COLA? What should I do with my annuity? Life in 100, life in 70. Hey, we're married. We have a difference in age. Maybe do a single life. Those types of things. They can help model that for you. They're not going to tell you what to do, but they can help walk you through all the various modeling. Again, back to housing. How am I going to handle a down payment? And then, as I indicated, some distributions in retirement, something's come up. Maybe you don't need to actually take a distribution. Maybe you can just take a loan out, pay it back, and then use that money down the road. They can help you with all of that thinking as well. We have these virtual one-on-one consultations. You've probably heard about these now. I started 5 years ago today, so back September 30th. And when I first started, they were talking about doing something like this, and really wasn't getting a lot of attention. And then the pandemic came along, so we ended up really implementing these one-on-one consultations. They've been a huge success. There's a link. I'm going to send the link out to Reverend Lambert at the end. Well, once we get the recordings done and all of that, we'll get that out to all of you. It's right there on this link right here. And one of the things I'm going to send to you is a .pdf of this particular presentation. So you'll see that link there. You sign up for a 1.5 hour consultation with myself. That's Todd Creviston. Could be Bob Christoffel, Manager of Benefit Education, or Cheryl Hatcher. And we'll run some reports. And again, when the projection is up and running, we'll run a projection. And we'll look at your benefit access, and we'll just go through whatever it is you want to go through. We'll explain what we can. And if we don't get through it in a half an hour, it's not a one and done kind of thing. We'll just go ahead and reschedule another one. It happens quite a lot. We usually go offline, look at each other's calendars, say, okay, let's just book us for that. And then we'll continue on with these one-on-one consultations. Certainly in the retiree season with the retirees, we do more than one on a frequent basis. If you want to do a one-on-one benefit education consultation and you have your own investment advisor or tax advisor or team or a blended one individual, they are invited, as is your spouse, by the way, they are invited to come on these one-on-one consultations as long as you are there. If you're there, again, your spouse is always invited, but if you have an advisor of some form, financial advisor of some form, they're allowed to participate and kind of get things, directly from us in that conversation. You want to register for benefit access if you have not done so yet. And again, we do the beneficiary designation. Again, there's certain themes that we hit on here. For action planning, take a look at your UMPIP. We always encourage people, as I've been doing for the last 2 hours, get into UMPIP, at least get the 1%, do as much as you can. We're now positioning ourselves for that conversation to be around the 4% to make sure you get that 4% matching contribution to Compass. Have a bit of a runway, but take a look at it. Everybody's situation is that situation. We respect that. But take a look at that. Start seeing where you are now. Take a look at life stage investment management. Maybe you know you're in it, but you haven't looked at it in a while, or maybe you just found out today, oh, I guess that's how that's working. Then go ahead and take a look at that and get an understanding of that. Another way to understand life stage investment management, whether you're in it or not, when you look at your quarterly statements, page 4, I think, may have a whole bunch of interfund transfers going on that you really didn't make happen. You don't remember doing that. And that's the program working behind the scenes. So when you review your statements, you can also take a look at where you may be with life stage investment management. When the projection tool is up and running, we recommend and encourage everybody to use that. You have EY, you have our participant solutions area or customer service area. You have the benefit education consultation. Again, just continue to wrap it all up. There's our participant solutions number. There's our retirement team number, which I think is getting retired, and everything's just going to go to that 851-2201 number. So let me see if I can't get back to getting these guys. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. So now I'm probably just looking at a black screen. Sorry about that. I wanted to see if any questions came in, and there's still no questions have come in. So that concludes this presentation. I don't know if Reverend Lambert wants to come on and say any closing comments. Again, just know that you and your family, your friends, your communities, my wife Mary's outside, myself, you're in our thoughts and you are in our prayers as you go through this period.
Well, thank you, Frank, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone who participated, and you will be in Gate City on next Monday. So
yes.
So if they want to come and hear you again,
yeah,
they can do that.
Well, I'd love to see you. I'd love to meet you in person, but this is a lot of information, as you now know, and so you need to hear it more than once. So if you have the ability to do that, we'd love to see you then.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.